A young beggar saves a beautiful CEO and she changes his life forever. The city streets were alive with the hum of a million stories, but none as unnoticed as that of Ethan Carter, a young man with nothing to his name but a tattered coat, a makeshift bed beneath an abandoned storefront, and a heart still clinging to hope. Once, he had dreams, college, a career, a future. But fate had its own plans, stripping him of everything after his parents died in a car accident, leaving him alone at 16. Now, at 23, he was invisible to most. People walked past him daily, their eyes sliding away, their hands tightening around their designer bags, afraid of even a glance. But Ethan wasn't bitter. He had long accepted his reality, though a small part of him still longed for kindness, for someone to see him, not as a beggar, but as a person. One freezing December evening, as Ethan sat huddled near the subway entrance, his stomach gnawing with hunger, a commotion broke through the city's usual noise. A woman in a tailored suit, her heels clicking against the pavement, was walking briskly toward a waiting car when a masked figure lunged at her. The mugger grabbed her purse, yanking it hard. She stumbled, her phone clattering to the ground. Ethan saw the fear in her wide green eyes, her body frozen in shock. Without thinking, he leapt forward. "Hey! Let go of her!" Ethan shouted, throwing himself at the thief. They tumbled onto the cold pavement, a flurry of fists and desperation. The mugger, startled by Ethan's unexpected attack, scrambled to his feet and bolted, disappearing into the alley. Ethan picked up the woman's purse and turned to her. She was still breathing heavily, her perfectly styled hair slightly disheveled. Ethan extended the purse toward her, his hands rough and trembling from the cold. "Here," he said simply. The woman took it, her eyes scanning his face, taking in the dirt-streaked cheeks, the hollow cheeks, the torn gloves barely holding together. But behind all that, she saw something else. Courage. Decency. A man who had risked himself for a stranger. "Are you hurt?" she asked. Ethan shook his head. "I'm fine. Just glad you're okay." She looked at him for a long moment, then said, "What's your name?" "Ethan," he replied. She hesitated before offering her hand. "I'm Madeline Hayes." Ethan's heart nearly stopped. Madeline Hayes, as in the CEO of Hayes Enterprises, one of the biggest tech firms in the country. He had seen her face in the newspapers, on billboards, always poised, powerful, untouchable. Yet here she was, standing in front of him, thanking him. "I owe you," she said firmly. Ethan shrugged. "You don't owe me anything." Madeline's gaze didn't waver. "Yes, I do." A second chance. The next morning, Ethan was dozing off on his usual street corner when a sleek black car pulled up. A driver stepped out and approached him. "Ethan Carter." Ethan blinked. Yeah." The driver handed him a card. "Madeline Hayes. Office of the CEO. She'd like to see you." Ethan hesitated. A joke? A setup? But something in him, a flicker of trust, told him to go. At Hayes Tower, he was ushered into a penthouse office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Madeline stood by the window, her arms crossed. When she turned, she smiled. "I did some research on you," she said. "You were a scholarship student at NYU before everything happened." Ethan tensed. "I'm not here to pity you," Madeline continued. "I'm here to offer you something. A job. A real one. No charity, just an opportunity." Ethan's heart pounded. "Why?" Madeline met his eyes. "Because you saved me when you didn't have to. Because I see someone who hasn't given up, even when life has given him every reason to. And because the world needs more people like you in it. A new beginning." The next few months were a whirlwind. Madeline gave Ethan an internship at her company, mentoring him herself. He started small, running errands, assisting in meetings. But every day, he absorbed everything, determined not to waste the chance he'd been given. Slowly, his confidence returned. The young man who once begged for scraps now stood in boardrooms, offering insights that even seasoned executives listened to. And through it all, Madeline was there, guiding him, challenging him, believing in him when no one else had. One evening, as they left the office together, Ethan turned to her. "You changed my life," he said quietly. Madeline smiled. "No, Ethan. You changed your own life. I just reminded you that you could." And for the first time in years, Ethan believed it. The heart of the story: months turned into years. Ethan climbed the corporate ladder, eventually becoming a key figure at Hayes Enterprises. But he never forgot where he came from. Every Christmas, he returned to the streets, not to stay, but to help, handing out food, offering jobs to those who needed a second chance, just as Madeline had done for him. And on those nights, as he watched the city lights flicker, he realized that kindness, pure, selfless kindness, had the power to change the world. Because sometimes, all it took was one moment, one act of courage, to turn a forgotten life into a future filled with endless possibilities.